Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening and happy Thursday. Happy midweek uplift service to everybody out there in and around and friends and family of Center for Spiritual Living, Pleasant Valley. My name is Reverend Kelly Bershinsky. I will be your host for the evening. And it's a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure. And I thank you guys for being here. Whether you are watching this in real time, whether you do it sometime this week, looking back on Facebook Live, always a pleasure. Love when Reverend Pam asked me to speak for the center. And I want to give a special shout out for sure to Marcia Beebe, practitioner extraordinaire, who helped me learn yet again tonight about signing on to Facebook Live. So thanks for that again, Marcia. And on this Thursday evening, Thursday, September 23rd, I want to say that it is fall, y'all. So happy fall, happy autumn to everybody. Yesterday, the 22nd, was the first day of autumn. And I love the fall. I love the cooler weather. The now in Camarillo we have gone from 80 degrees every day down to 76 every day. So fall is in the air. But I love the fall, and I love particularly the what fall brings. So for me, fall means pumpkin. I am a fan of all things pumpkin, and fall brings that. You see the pumpkin spice lattes out at the local coffee houses now and that sort of thing. And another thing that fall brings, the end of summer, the beginning of fall, I always think about football. And this year is no exception. Football is in the air for sure this year. And in alignment with that, I did my talk tonight. Now, it's not going to be all about football. If you are not a football fan, or if you don't have one in your household, that is certainly okay. But what I want to discuss in that realm is not football in particular, but it is the title of my talk tonight, which is Instant Replay. And football makes me think of that, and that's where I came up with that title for tonight, Instant Replay. And so please bear with me if you are not a sports fan or a football fan, and know that there will be something in this talk for everybody. But this idea of instant replay I will be referring to in the context of football, although most, if not all, major sports, at least all of them in the major leagues of those sports, use instant replay to some degree now, in some way or another. The rules vary on it. The rules change a little bit depending on the particular sport. The rules change about how it's used, how often it can be used, etc., etc. But regardless of the sport, the technology exists pretty much. The idea of it is that it allows us to pause and rewind and then review footage which was simultaneously broadcast and recorded. And it's done in an effort to accurately determine what transpired in a certain play of, for instance, a football game or other sporting event. Now, that's probably not a groundbreaking revelation to anybody of exactly what instant replay is, but one of the things many years ago, when the discussion began about whether or not to use instant replay in officiating football games, the argument was we don't want it to be abused. We don't want to continually have a coach or a team challenge a referee's decision and continuously slow down the game, because a sporting event is much about speed. It's about the pace of the game and the momentum and excitement of the game, and to use instant replay to abuse it, to use it often, would slow the game down a lot, and so the decision was reached that it must be used appropriately. And so it often is costly, for instance, to use instant replay in a game, because it costs the team a timeout and that sort of thing. But all in all, the technology came about and is utilized in football and in other games as a means to make the game better, to enhance the game, to make it more transparent and give it a greater sense of integrity by taking out, or at least reducing, the human error in the game. For instance, if a referee misjudged a play or made a bad ruling or something like that. So this technology has been around a long time now, and after decades of use now, there's still great controversy around it. There's still great controversy around the instant replay technology and whether or not it should be used in football and other sporting events, whether it truly serves the game, whether it serves the game as it was intended to do, or whether it detracts therefrom. Opponents of instant replay technology claim that it slows it down too much, the game loses its momentum and excitement. They say that very few plays are actually overturned, very few calls are changed as a result, so why don't we just allow the game to proceed as it would otherwise without intervening and stopping the action in lieu of instant replay? Well, there you go, a spiritual center, and we're talking about football and instant replay here on this Thursday night. Not to solve any of the controversy or the dispute around that, and whether or not instant replay serves to make the game better or not, I will leave up to your own personal interpretation, or at least to that of the sports fan in your household. But it brings to mind for me, the question of, do you use instant replay in your own life? Like, do you utilize that in your own life? And if so, do you use it appropriately? And I'll explain just a little bit about what I mean by that. So in my household, we use instant replay. We no longer have a cable subscription, so any time we watch television, it is through a streaming service. But we stream everything that we watch here, and so for certain, we have the ability to pause a show right in the middle of it and to rewind it, to watch something over if we so choose. And we do that, for instance, if we're watching a movie or a TV show and it's at some sort of crucial point in that TV show or movie, and an actor, speaks her or his line, and all of a sudden we couldn't hear what they said, the volume changed a little bit, we couldn't quite make out the verbiage that they used in that line, so we'll stop and rewind and listen again, watch again, and listen to see if we can understand that line, so that if it was an important line, that we're not confused as we continue to watch the movie or the television show or whatever it happens to be. So that seems like a perfectly reasonable way to use instant replay, in my opinion. I use it in my own life because I'm a speaker. And I will likely do that sometime this week with this Facebook Live presentation. I'll probably watch it again at some point this week just to audit my performance. Like, I use it so that I can see how I did. What would I have done differently? What could I have done better? What do I think I did really, really well? But I use it in a way that allows me to improve my skills in the art of public speaking. I think it would be a great use of replay technology for you to watch this talk again at some point in the next week or two, just to remember what a brilliant job I did tonight. So I say that tongue-in-cheek for sure. But you could watch it and see how brilliant I was or how handsome I am tonight. And I think that would be a wonderful use of instant replay. But have you ever replayed anything again and again in an effort to change an outcome? So in sports, that's exactly why instant replay is used. In other words, a team feels like they have suffered at the hands of a referee making a bad call, making an incorrect decision on a play, and so they challenge that play in an effort to have that result overturned. I think we try to do that sometimes in our own lives. We replay things and replay them and look at them again and analyze them in an effort to change the outcome, to change the result, to change what happened. And if you're like me, your attempts at doing that are probably not altogether successful because it doesn't work like it does in a professional sporting event. In fact, it reminds me that style of using replay in our own minds reminds me a lot of the definition that I hear so often for insanity. A definition that says insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I realize my team made a horrible play, and so I watch it over and over and over in an attempt to change that, to understand why they made that bonehead play, why they made that mistake, or I mean, even, hey, I gave you 5 chances here, and you did the same thing every time. You know, in an attempt to see if they're going to learn from their mistakes. And so I say that jokingly, although I wish for those results to change sometimes in my sporting event or something like that in a football game. And yet, on a personal level, not football now, not sports, but the way that we replay things in our own mind, I think we often do with a similar measure of insanity. So I want to share just a little tiny story, really fast story about a replay that I have made in my own mind probably thousands of times. Not so any longer, but I did for many years. And it is a replay of a conversation with my father from when I was a teenage boy. I don't know, 16 or 17 in my mind. And my parents had divorced a few years before. And my mother felt like our father, who she was divorced from, but they were raising kids and still in each other's lives because of that, wasn't treating her very well, wasn't treating his kids very well. And I felt the same way. And so I take it upon myself to have this conversation with my father, in which I bring the itemized statement of all the ways that he has harmed my mother and harmed me and my siblings and devastated our family. And it is me defending my mom and defending our family and standing up for what is right. And for a long time, many years ago, anytime I thought about my father, this is the replay that would happen. But the truly insane thing about this replay is that the actual conversation never happened. The actual conversation never happened. It was simply a figment of my imagination. It was me sort of wishing I had done this, or wishing that I had stood up for what is right, or stood up for my mother. And so I offer that just as an example of the insanity that takes place within our own minds when things just replay over and over and over again. And I certainly hope I'm not the only one, but I would love to be in a room live with you tonight, just to try to understand, because I would love to know what are those things that that play over and over and over again in your mind, that may or may not be true, that may or may not have happened, that may or may not just be a figment of your imagination, but which don't serve you in any way. So what are those for you? I think a lot of us replay in our minds over and over again all the ways in which we have been harmed. I did that in that conversation with my father. We replay the things in our minds about how I am right and you are wrong. Right? That what you are doing is wrong. I am right. I'm the good guy here. You are the bad guy here. Or that bad relationship. You know, the relationship that ruined the person's life. Have you heard that story where the person talks about this relationship and divorcing or breaking up, and how their entire life has just been changed and ruined because of the ending of this relationship. And when you ask questions and dig deeper and further investigate, you come to realize that the relationship the person is talking about ended 30 years ago or something like that, and yet that incessant thought comes up again and again and again in that person's own mind. And so maybe it is just very human to do that. Maybe it is a general human tendency that we replay and rehash and have on automatic these old thoughts and habits and patterns which are suggesting that we're not good enough, not smart enough, that maybe we'll never amount to anything, or that I'll never be happy and perhaps I don't even deserve it anyway. and those debilitating ways that we replay those thoughts and things in our mind are absolutely an inappropriate use of this thing I'm calling instant replay. And yet, to a large degree, I think we all do it. I think almost and perhaps 100% we all have done it. And if you are in a place in life that you no longer do that, I suspect it has taken some work, that it was not an automatic thing. And so what about that? What about that? If I am someone who has those tendencies of thought which are maybe negative or self-defeating or upsetting, or which cause me pain or turmoil internally in some way, what then is to be done about it so that my life does not simply become a rerun or a repeat or an instant replay of these old thoughts and continuous circumstances that I'm not particularly thrilled with? Like, what would I do about that to take that off instant replay? And I think it's a great question. And maybe one we don't ask enough, maybe one I don't ask enough. And for sure, there is the maybe obvious thing is that, well, I have to do something different. I have to make a new choice. And I think that's true. I have to make a new choice if I want to change that stuff. I have to stop hitting the replay button on those same old thoughts and mental processes. But in my life, what I will say about making that sort of change and learning to change the way my thoughts work and that sort of thing is that for me it has been more easily said than done. I have tremendous success with it now at this stage of my life, but it was not always an easy thing to make a new choice, to choose something new. And while it sounds simple enough, I don't think it is always that easy. And so one of the things, I hear it around religious science centers, and I hear it around New Thought circles and in spiritual circles a lot, is the notion, the idea, the statement that we are always at choice. And it is a conversation I have had countless times with other religious science students, with other ministers and practitioners and friends and family, and hearing that idea that we are always at choice. Why don't you just choose something else? And the long and short of it is, I disagree. I disagree, yes, absolutely, part of this center, a part of New Thought, a religious science minister, and I disagree with the concept that we are always at choice. I think it is much more accurate to say something like, choice always exists, or the possibility of choice always exists. Then the question comes down to, am I at a place in life where I can exercise that possibility? So I've had this argument a number of times, not always an argument, sometimes just a conversation. And it took me a long time to find someone who agreed with me. It took a long time to find that. And when I did, however, I found a doozy. And in fact, after reading his thoughts on this very idea, I realized that they explain my feelings about this idea and choice far better than I had ever vocalized it. And the person I'm speaking about is Eckhart Tolle. He is, most of you probably know him or have read things of his, and if not, he is an internationally renowned spiritual leader, New Thought leader, and I read this in a tiny little book of his called Practicing the Power of Now. But Eckhart Tolle says the same thing. He believes that people aren't always at choice either. This is in a section of that book called The Power to Choose. And so he considers it a power that one develops. And what he says about it in his book is, this will not be verbatim, but he says that until I have developed my consciousness, until I am conscious that I'm not at choice. And he says that as long as you identify with the conditioned patterns of your mind, they will run your life and you will not be at choice. And he says it always looks as if people had a choice, but that it is an illusion. Because until I disidentify from those conditioned patterns, then I am simply on instant replay. Until I can disidentify from those, I simply play the same things over and over again. The same thoughts, the same patterns, the same habits, the same actions. And he says that although in that condition, although you are not at choice, you will still suffer the consequences of your unconsciousness, of a lack of consciousness, and just continue to suffer. And so this talk has gone from football and instant replay and that sort of thing to this really deep spiritual discussion now. And the idea about how then do I step into a place where I'm better able to choose, where I can exercise that power. And Eckhart Tolle says that you must first disidentify from those conditioned patterns of your mind. What I will say is that you can't disidentify from those conditioned patterns until you identify them. Until you identify them and see them for what they are. Just thoughts. Just rumblings in the mind. Right? Just the mind doing what it does, which is to produce thoughts. This is what awareness is all about. Eckhart Tolle often uses the term presence, whereas I use awareness. But this is what awareness is about. It's about becoming aware of the conditioned thoughts that show up in my mind that are disguised as choice. It's about those same things coming up again and again and again, and me believing that those are the choices that are possible for me. And believing that other choices aren't. When I really get that, if I really understand that on a really deep level, and I don't mean simply a thinking level, I mean a feeling embodied in my bones and in my gut kind of a level, then the replay stops. If I understand that those conditioned thoughts are not me, then the replay stops. Because I'll no longer identify myself as those thoughts. And I'll have the ability then to choose a different action. I will be able to make a response, to take an action that is not simply in alignment with old conditioning. When I can take an action that is not just based on old conditioning, then I am at choice. But in the absence of that awareness, how do I explain it? In the absence of that awareness, then my choice looks like default. Right? It looks like a choice, but it's actually a default, a preconditioned pattern that I will step back into. And what I call choice in that state is actually just an instant replay of something that happened a long time ago. So if this sounds good then, if this makes sense to you, and you would like to step into that deeper awareness, into that ability to make better and better and better decisions, then how do I do so? How do I build my awareness? I think becomes the next question. And the great news is that we all have the capacity to do so. So, I think it starts with attention. I have to pay attention to the thoughts and ideas that come up in my own mind. And so, what I suggest, and many people in our spiritual communities would likely suggest this, is meditation. But to me, meditation is not simply to relax. It's not simply to zone out or put myself into, some sort of blissful nirvana or something like that. Meditation for me is a dynamite time to observe, to pay attention, to look at the thoughts that are coming up in my mind. Because I'm not out here actively doing anything. I'm sitting in meditation, and I simply I make this agreement with myself before doing so. Just allow anything that wants to come up in your mind to come up. No, I don't agree with it. I don't disagree with it. I don't think I'm good, bad, or indifferent for having that thought. I'm just noticing it. I'm just building my muscles of awareness. But when I can sit in meditation and not react to those old ingrained habits of thought, when I can sit in meditation and be free of the effect of those thoughts, have choice about responding or reacting to them, then I am much more likely to be able to do that out in the world when things are not as so silent and so quiet as sitting on a meditation cushion or something like that. So I build that skill in meditation, right? Just look at the thought as it comes up, becoming aware of how my mind operates, of the programs and the thoughts and the patterns it is running. And it is a life-changing experience for me because it has given me another ability. And this is an ability I use out in the world often. That meditation practice and just watching and observing my thoughts and being okay with them has given me the opportunity out in daily life to pause before I respond. Am I 100%? Not 100%. But on the really important things in life, those moments where I might otherwise react and say something or do something later I would really wish I could take back, that I could change the outcome, it's given me the chance to respond just for a second or two. Pardon me, it's given me the chance to pause just for a second or two before I respond. And while that sounds like a small thing, it has huge implications because it has changed my relationships and my friendships and simply my sense of self, of not reacting to the person I might otherwise make a snide or rude comment to, or not being upset with someone because they're in line in the grocery store in front of me with a huge basket of groceries and I only have 3 items. It has given me the chance to pause before I respond. And it's a huge increase in my life, and it is a huge increase in my ability, in my power to choose. And so what I want to say as I wrap this up tonight is that I don't know where you are in life, but in a way, I don't care where you are in life. I don't care where you are or where you've been or even particularly what you've done in life, because we've all done things of which we might not be hugely proud. But what I do know is that regardless of where you are, where you've been, anything else, you have the capacity for change, and you have the capacity to choose. You at least have the capacity to build your awareness so that you can step into that powerful persona for whom choice is automatic. So again, regardless of the condition of your life, right this minute, I believe in you and who and what you are. I want you to know that you are greater than any thought, than any idea, than any concept you could even hold of yourself. You are not a rerun, a reprint, a replay. You are original material. You are spirit in human form, forever growing and creating. That's what I know about you. You are new and exciting and fresh every single day. Put these tools to work for you. That meditation and developing your awareness of your own thought processes. Put that to work for you. Put to work for you this idea of pausing before responding. If you have the willingness to do that, I promise you, you can make a different choice and you can play a different game. I wish you the best, and I thank you so much for being here tonight. just God bless you all, and namaste. Thank you so kindly.